NaturallySpeaking for Dictation. We are going to discuss a few things today. We are very lucky to have Luke here, who is a student who, I'll get you to introduce yourself in a moment, but Luke has used Dragon to help support his ability to be able to write down all the amazing things that he's got in his head, and he has also used it during his exams, which I think is something that's going to be really interesting for lots of people. So I think we can probably assume that most of you know who CENMAC are, but we will kind of talk a little bit about that just in case there's anyone that doesn't. We will introduce Dragon Dictate as a software that we use for voice recognition and speech to text. And we will look a little bit into how we determine whether or not it's an appropriate software for the students that we support. And Joe, who is one of our wonderful HLTAs, is going to also give us some demonstrations on how to use it. So there won't be much talking from me. The majority of the session will be a demonstration of how the software works. So we are a multidisciplinary, can never say it, team. We have speech and language therapists, we have teachers, we have HLTAs, we have OTs, and we work together to find the best solution for the students that we support. We have regular meetings where we discuss all the needs, and we put the students first. That's what our service does, and we support them in their barriers to learning or, because sometimes it's both, their communication needs. Okay, so I will defer to the experts in Dragon in a moment, but just to give you an overview, Dragon Dictate can be used in several ways. It could be used for students who have motor function differences, who can use their voice to control a whole array of things. But as Luke is also going to demonstrate, it can be used to access exams and for a different way of recording your ideas from handwriting. So it could be that the students experience fatigue, or maybe the function of writing is something that doesn't focus their attention, or maybe it's because they don't have the fine motor control to have legible writing. So speech-to-text software like Dragon is a really powerful thing to use. So the benefits of using Dragon for our students: ultimately we want our students to be independent, we want them to feel empowered, we want them to use the software to access their learning needs and advocate for themselves, so they are able to do that using this software. Using their voices reduces the physical strain, so some students find it really difficult to record, and it actually causes them discomfort, but by using the speech-to-text software, it stops that from happening and hopefully improves their confidence. Would you agree, Luke? So, implementing Dragon Dictate, we will go into a little bit more detail with that in a moment. It's a very personalised approach with CENMAC for all the software that we go. So we will go and assess the student, we will talk to them, we will find out their needs, we will talk to staff, we will talk to SENCOs, we will talk to one-to-ones, we will make sure that we have a big picture of what the student needs to access their learning, and then we trial the software. So sometimes we might change it, sometimes we will try one thing and then we'll go in and try something else. So it's really a trial and error process for us to be able to determine what software is correct for our students. So now I'm going to pass over. There might be a little bit of fiddling around because we are going to move the HDMI cable from one computer to the next computer so that we can demonstrate the software, but I'm going to hand over to Joe now, who is going to demonstrate the software in action.
Hi everyone, is my voice registering for everyone? Working good? Cool, fantastic. So we'll just give a quick demonstration of how the software can be used. This is Dragon in the top right. It's this little guy that sits on the top of the computer screen. It's quite uninvasive and quite easy to use. I'm going to switch it on manually like this. And then I'm going to do a quick test comment to see if Dragon is registering my voice, full stop, new line. I'm just going to test quickly to see if Dragon can register my voice, full stop. New line. Amazing, full stop. We can all appreciate how embarrassing that would have been if it didn't work. New line? Scroll down. Scroll down. So, I want to talk about how we use our voice with technology, full stop. Let's consider, that we might be at home using our voice to interact with our technology, full stop, new line. Perhaps we're talking to an Amazon Alexa and we want to know if the weather outside is sunny, full stop, new line. Scroll down. Perhaps in doing this, instead of checking the weather, we end up ordering a surfboard from Amazon Prime, full stop. Perhaps we are on the interchange and we think of the perfect response to that viral tweet that we saw earlier, full stop, new line. Perhaps, we are using our voice as a biometric tool to access our accounts, for example, banking, full stop, new line. So we have to consider, what Dragon can do that is different from conventional forms of dictation, full stop. New line. Dragon uses a tool called passive learning, full stop. What this means is, Dragon can learn the tone of our voice, full stop. Learn the tone of our voice, full stop. Full stop. New line. This means, the more that we use Dragon, the higher the accuracy is going to be, full stop. For your reference, I have used Dragon for approximately 5 hours in total, full stop. This is particularly useful to students who have a voice difference, perhaps a lisp, aspraxia. Scroll down. Select brasia, apraxia. End of line. New line. So, Dragon is particularly good at adapting to voices that may not be standard speech, full stop. New line. With this, we can allow students who don't have standard speech to access writing. Full stop, new line. Dragon is also a full computer control. This means that we can access every component of the computer entirely with our voice, full stop, new line. Scroll down. As you can see, there are certain commands that I can access. Scratch that. As you can see, there are certain commands that I can access in order to control the computer. New line. An example of this is mouse grid. Go to sleep. Cool. Thank you for your patience, everyone there. So I just want to give a little bit of background about the setup that we have here. So as Carly said, when we put Dragon forward, there are certain characteristics that we want to look for. One of them is the software that we put forward, another one is the hardware. For your reference, the microphone that I'm using here is used to control the speakers at the back so that you can all hear me, but the microphone that's controlling Dragon is the one local to my device. So you can see that we can use different variations of the hardware to get the best sort of outcome from the students. A little bit more about full computer control. It basically just means that if we wanted to access things like the internet, if we wanted to send emails, if we wanted to play video games in some cases, we can do that entirely with our voice. If we think about conventional dictation, if you think about what you might have on a smartphone, what that will do is it will use a language model that is sort of generalized to standard speech. But with Dragon, we can have the software adapt to how we speak over time so that it can adopt things that wouldn't be classed as standard speech, such as if you have perhaps a stutter. You can also use it for custom commands for things that are unfamiliar, like names. CENMAC, for example, it might not be able to determine that as a name, but if we continue to use it over time, it will detect it, and that's what makes Dragon so powerful. It's an amazing bit of kit. We've had really good success with putting it forward for students and how they can access examinations. There's a myriad of different dictation tools that we can use to do this. Dragon typically, like I say, you would put forward for students that have limited motor control or perhaps they're non-ambulatory. And we are really well placed here, and it's fortunate that we can provide the support on an ongoing basis from the time that it's administered, and we can send one of the advisory teachers or one of the occupational therapists or a HLTA out to help develop the software for the student. A lot of it's about building confidence, a lot of it's a little bit less about knowing the technical side of it, but it's about teaching Dragon about the consistency of our voice. You can see that something that we tell students a lot is you have to pretend to be on the news, you have to pretend to be reading out the headlines, so that we're speaking with a regular pace, for example, but we're keeping our tone and our intonation and our prosody consistent. And when it does work, it's fantastic to see that students can be able to use their voice to articulate themselves in the written format as they would with their speech. And if their speech isn't standard and there is deviations there, that there is technology handy that can adopt to their specific need. Anyway, that's enough about me. What we're going to do now is I'm going to clear the screen and I'm going to quickly swap over our HDMI. I'm going to have another go with a demonstration using a slightly different headset. And we'll talk about how Dragon can be used to benefit specific students. So I'll just take a moment to swap everything back over. Fantastic. Cool. So, Luke, I would like you to talk about your experience using Dragon Dictation to access your GCSE examinations.
Good question. So I use Dragon Dictate to access my GCSEs. What I mean by this statement: correct whining, choose to, is that it allowed me to actually get stuff down on paper that was legible, as my handwriting is absolutely atrocious. And the amount of cramps I would suffer in my hand, completely unbearable. Correct odds, I would suffer. Correct are from in mind. Yeah, utterly, completely unbearable. But yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit but Luke, I think what people are going to be super impressed. Can you give us a little rundown of the grades that you achieved in your GCSE results using Dragon Dictation?
Now that's the fun part.
Yes, it is.
So, my predicted grades, we were looking at a 3 across geography, a 2 for history, and then a variety of my subjects in the low 4s and 5s.
Okay, that was your prediction. What did you get?
So thanks to Dragon Dictation, I was able to achieve an 8 in geography.
Going.
A 7 in history. 6 RS. So I literally went from an averaging student and not even being able to pass some of my subjects. Correct parcel. Pass. To quite high academic grades. And concurrently, I'm currently looking at applying to Oxford.
And will you continue to use Dragon in your studies, do you think?
Oh, most definitely. I've been using it recently for my NEA, which is a non-exam assessment. So it's a long-form writing task. The one I've got to do is about 5,000 words. So I've been doing bits and pieces of it here and there, and being able to speak it is so much easier than having to write it all out.
Well, congratulations on your GCSEs and just the process of everything that you've done. I think has been an amazing demonstration of how to use it. So well done, Luke. Congratulations.
Yeah, one thing I'd just like to commend you on your device is that you can see that if you look in the top right, you'll see that Luke's device is actually active while both of us were talking. You can see that Dragon didn't dictate any of the information that this says just there, so the microphone was active all of that time, but because of how the passive learning worked, it can only tune in and therefore will only dictate what Luke can say. This is particularly useful if the device is going to be used in classes, which it isn't always. It depends on what CENMAC determines is the function, whether what we want to get out of the software. A lot of the time it will be for examinations. But you can see the situation that it can be used in a myriad of settings, and I'm thrilled to see that it's worked so well somewhere here when we had like the background noise in a big open room and different microphones, and that was fantastic. And I'm so happy to see that that has worked so effectively. I would like to ask about how he found the uptake of using Dragon, how his experience was when he first started using it, and if anyone in the room has any, if anyone in the room has been able to use Dragon, if you have any advice for them.
Absolutely killing it with the questions today. Right, so there is a bit of a learning curve in the beginning, so you do have to train the model in order to understand your specific speech patterns. But I feel once you get the hang of that, it just takes off. Personally, scroll down, I don't know all of the commands that my colleague here does, because I don't really have a use for them, but so many others will, who have less ambulance that I have.
Cool, fantastic. That raises a really good point. Because Dragon can be put forward as a full computer controlled solution, it does have the capacity to work really well in tandem with any other AT that we might have in place. Some of these are native. For example, there's software such as Inspiration, which is a tool for mind mapping, which comes with a set of commands from a partnership between the two to make sure that access is easier. But let's say we're using something that's not native, a third-party software that we have to use with voice. What Dragon can do that other methods of dictation can't do or may struggle with is we can add in custom commands. For example, I'm not going to try mine in case it doesn't work, but we have one for stock scheduling. So I have a command which is insert scheduling, which will then give me a massive block of text, which will be the standard appointment thing that I can then make amendments to. This is particularly useful for things like phone numbers or acronyms or other things that might be more difficult to dictate. Outside of that, though, we can also add custom commands for access. So we can add in shortcuts for, let's say, opening a camera on a computer. Without that, we would have to use mouse grid. I'll just give a demonstration of what that looks like. Mouse grid. 5. Ow, sorry, you're right. Thank you, Ben. Mouse grid. 1. 1. Click forward. Click 4. 4. Click 5. Click 5.
Don't forget, Joe's only been using it for 5 hours. Luke's been using it for quite some time, so it does take time to train the dragon. That is really important. Do you want to keep going?
Yeah, absolutely. So we can use that tool to pinpoint spaces for the mouse. And what I mean to say is, if we were to do this to access something like the camera, that can be maybe 4 or 5 jumps to go through. But with Dragon's capability of custom commands, we can tell it exactly what we need and input that command and have the sort of hardware run that in a single command, so we can streamline the process.
So actually, we've only got 25 minutes doesn't take very long, but we've only got a few minutes left. So should we open the floor to questions for? To anyone? Does anyone have any questions maybe for Luke to answer? Lucinda.
Hello Luke. I've heard good things about you.
It's my singing your praises.
Yes, you had, Carly has been.
Not again.
Yeah, well, you know, you make it very easy for me to, Luke.
It's very true. My son Evan is in you were probably a couple of years ago, he's year 10, very able, handwriting, he can't even read it himself, it's that bad. Can I ask, when you were doing your GCSEs with Dragon, like with your humanities subjects, like your English, your history, the way that, did you write plans and notes out in the exam first and then dictate it? How was the process of like tackling it like an essay-based question?
I love the question.
Thank you.
So I personally will do a sort of plan off to the side with the structure. So sort of my main point, just so I keep on topic.
Yeah.
Scroll down. And then I'll speak it from there. So I'll have the paragraph structure to the side of me, and then my planning, and then just sort of go from there.
And when you were doing your GCSEs, some of the papers are a mixture of things like multiple choice and short answer questions and then long written questions. Did you do it all on Dragon, or did you do a combination? Like if it was a multiple choice, did you do that by hand or?
So for geography, there's quite a lot of graphs, as well as bar charts which you have to fill in. So I wrote in the software that I answered it on the paper. So Dragon is quite good for long form essays, but if you're trying to fill out boxes or charts, it's not particularly the greatest. But I did handwrite one of my exams, which was maths, because not particularly accessible on the dictation.
But we're working on it.
Floor's open if anyone wants to.
We've got time for one more question, I'm afraid, because we will be
I'm available after. Just come and find me.
Thank you, Luke. That'd be amazing. So, the gentleman at the back.
Just interested in its use in the classroom. You mentioned your background was it's intuitive, so you were your experiences in your classroom using Dragon, and how the other students responded to you talking. Or was it mostly done outside of the classroom? And especially those classrooms that can be quite noisy. How did Dragon deal with it?
So I don't personally have that much experience within the classroom. I more keep it for at home when I'm doing homework, long form writing, and then as well as exams. I usually write up shorthand when in the classroom and then expand it later.
What might tend to work is if classroom usage is the intention when we put Dragon forward. What might tend to happen is you recommend using Dragon at home for an extended period of time, so that's in a contained setting where you can control the amount of background noise, and you can pinpoint what's accessible. A lot of students might find using it in class quite intimidating. So what we might put forward is reading a short passage instead of actually dictating from whatever you're pulling out of your mind. It might just be reading something familiar, so that you're spending time with the software and the software's picking up on how you're expressing.
So thank you all for coming, and thank you for listening, and thank you to Luke. As he said, I think you are going to be around now, aren't you, for a short time. So if you did want to kind of grab him and ask any other questions that we didn't have time for during the seminar, please feel free. So thank you for coming.